Hey, welcome. This is Sig Taylor with Fish Out Loud. I've got longtime friend Ken Maw here from the West Coast. If you're from the West Coast, I probably don't need to introduce Ken Maw to you, but if you're not and you're here listening to where we live here now in Florida, what a delight I have for you. Ken, I've been thinking about this. We haven't really talked for a while.
Yep.
But I started thinking, I go, how long have I known Ken? It's got to be almost 25 years, huh?
Yeah. Easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
When did you win Clear Lake? What year was that?
2005.
2005. Yeah. And then we were fishing 100%
Oh,
and
yeah,
North South Bass way before that.
absolutely. We're talking the 1990s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you guys may not realize this, but Ken's only 25 years old. Okay, so he's been at this a while. You're looking good, brother. You're looking good.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So, want to get right into it. I want to congratulate you for your Toyota Series win in the Major League Fishing. I'm going to ask you a question. Is that your most proud win so far?
Yeah. I,
I know
I
you've
always
won a
have
lot.
this saying. I always have this saying, Sig, that people say, "Well, what's your best win?" And I always tell people it's the next one.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but if I had to, I mean, I've been blessed. I've won a lot of major events out west, and a lot, some of those events have paid way more than the Toyota Series. But as a competitor, we don't, if you're really in that competitive and you want to accomplish things, the money spends, but the trophy, like your trophy, everybody forever. Everybody still says, "Oh, you remember when Sig Taylor broke the record for four fish?" Because California had some crazy rule. Remember that? So everybody remembers that. The money's long gone. You done spent, lost, or ate that money with no sweat missed and all the other stuff that is, come and gone in your life.
Yeah, yes. No, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I just have been watching you, and for me, I've been out. I got out of bass fishing for a while. Paul Elias, Bobby Barrett kind of lured me back in. It's like you can never leave this. It's like the mafia. They just drag you back in. And I got to, thank Paul for that. Thank Bobby for that. They're saying, hey, why don't you start fishing again? And here I am. But you kept at it. You kept at it. And
Yeah.
I only I always kind of considered you like a Delta rat. You love that Delta, by
Yeah.
the California Delta.
Right.
And but you've really honed your skills. And if you're listening right now and you're saying this to myself, hey, I want to take my fishing to the next level, you got to follow Ken. And I'm going to get right out of the way right now. Ken, how can somebody find you and start following you? What's the easiest way right now?
Instagram and Facebook is at Kenma Promotions, and then I
Okay.
started getting serious recently with my YouTubes, and that's Kenma Fishing.
Okay, Ken Maw
Uh, you
Fishing,
know,
and Maw is M-A-H. Ken
yep.
Maw Promotions, which I love when you did that promotions. A lot of people do fishing, their name fishing. Change it up a little bit, and you did Ken Maw Promotions, and actually I spoke with you a few years ago because if you're listening to Ken, you start following him, watch what he does and how he does it. He has perfected this social media that is a part of fishing now. It really is a part of
It,
fishing.
it
And
it really is.
and so does it come kind of how do you feel like when you're ready to do it all the time? Because for me, I'm still like catching fish. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to turn my camera off. I just caught some fish.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, especially at the highest level, everything has changed. Before, there used to be this huge value on winning these major events. And it's still important as competitors, but it's less important to endorsers and supporters and companies. We really have to embrace, being content creators along with being accomplished tournament anglers. There are a lot of people all over who, are just tremendous content creators. and the companies love those types of anglers. So if you can do both, I think if you can be, like a Scott Martin, or like Mark Daniels does a lot of stuff on, he's one of my favorites. And I've never met Brian Latimer, but he's another one. And I mean, look at Milliken.
Yes.
Right. I mean, he started off with the social media stuff, and then
went into
he went, yeah, instead of starting off as a tournament angler and doing the social media, he started off as the social media and then went to be the tournament angler. So either way, when you can master both sides, it's exactly what you said. Though that's when the doors will open and things start happening.
Now, again, this is important for some of the youngsters that are watching this, and they're looking. They say, okay, Ken may be a good role model for me to follow. But in the beginning, just like anything that's new, did you feel uncomfortable a little bit
with the social media?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, us old dogs. I think the younger, the younger generation is more adept at it. They're more natural at it. For us, we have to, I think we grew up in such a secretive age, and that's a good thing. And it's also a curse sometimes, because, sometimes you don't want to share that information, but yeah, I think in the beginning, it was difficult, but I tell people all the time, like, look, if companies are gonna pay us for our social media and for the content that we create, then you need to create that content. I mean, it's pretty much simple as that, right? So whether you do that in a tournament setting, or you walk the bank, or you're in a kayak, it really doesn't matter, as, like it used to, so to speak, that you pretty much have the world in your hand, with this.
Exactly. And, if you're starting out with social media and you're a little bit shy, just start putting it out there. You'll start feeling more and more comfortable doing it. Like I say, Ken is probably one of the best that I've seen doing it. I'm not just saying that because we've been friends for all these years, but because he really is very, very good at it. And just watch and get tips, and be yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. Be yourself.
That's the biggest thing, that's the biggest thing, is just, you have to be yourself. You also have to be consistent.
Yes.
You can't not post for a week. So you do have to create content, and once you turn that spigot on, you can't turn it off if you want your following to grow and things like that. But it's necessary. It's just like before, when we used to, try to chase sponsors down. You had to have a resume and a proposal. Nowadays you have to have some social media following and some accounts, and that you're doing that stuff. A company will search your social media, good and bad, and especially your engagement. There's a lot of people that, get on social media, and, they're talking about everything under the sun, and they're really opinionated about whether it's political things or religious things, or what's going on. And companies, they, if you're a little too far wherever, they'll shy away from you. That's basically your reference check nowadays.
Absolutely. That's very good that you point that out. And just be yourself. Just be yourself. Start putting content out there, and be yourself. Be the best that you can be. There is a book that I want to recommend. I don't know, Ken and I haven't talked about this, but it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's an awesome book, and it's by Dale Carnegie. It's a legend of a book, and if you can get that, have you ever read that? Because you sure know, huh? You just comes natural to Ken.
Yeah, I think if you're good to people, I think, I always say karma is real.
Yes.
And, if you're good to people, people for the most part are going to be good back. I mean, you're going to meet some crappy people, and you're going to meet some people who are in your life to take advantage of you. And, that's just part of life.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
not, you don't win at every decision you make.
Now, you talk about engagement. You do respond to just about every time somebody puts something out there, right? Like, "Hi, Ken," or "Hey, that was a great tournament." You're
Yeah.
very humble with that.
Yeah, because the engagement's a big part of that. You can't just post things one way, and people want to ask questions about, they might be little simple things, and I mean that's really, talking about Facebook, that's really what it was designed originally to do, right? Is to keep some type of assimilation of some closeness
Yes.
between people who are apart, and as well as I do. I met you through the fishing industry. I mean, some of my greatest friends I met through the fishing industry,
Hmm.
right? Or through
Yes.
fishing.
Yes.
There's a really great um character of people for the most part. I mean, there's always some bad apples, but for the most part, there's really a high character person and people that are surrounded around the fishing industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I got to tell you, that's one of the things that I think of the most when I did fish back way back when, and that is the. I spoke with two people yesterday that I haven't spoken to in over a decade. Now, you and I haven't spoken about 2 or 3 years, or maybe, matter of fact, maybe it's 3 or 4 years. But it's just I had some great memories fishing a lot of the West Coast circuits. One Bass is a good example.
West Coast, 100%.
100%. A lot of
Kerchal
those
bass.
circuits that were just wonderful. The people that and if you're fishing right now, um, grab those people because in 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to be looking back going, man, was that a great time? I build some great relationships, just like Ken and
Absolutely.
I. All right, let's talk about fishing. Let's
Yeah.
get into the skinny here. Um, and that is, I want to talk a little bit about the Toyota Series because you did win that awesome tournament. What was the final weight after 3 days?
I should know it, 80, was it 82.6?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
pretty much that's what Byron Velvick had the Bassmaster Opens record for 3 days, about 82.6, I think it was. I don't need or four or something. So that that's on the caliber of that, which was is it's just is phenomenal. So
Yeah. It's crazy.
yeah, um, you came in what 22 the first day, 29, and then 31.
Yeah, I had 21 even,
Yes,
29.12,
29-12.
and then 31.10
You
on the
know,
last day.
that last day, let's talk about that. You decided not to do the traditional that time of year throwing the baits, right? You went to flipping, didn't you?
Yeah, Zig, I said this, when we showed up in practice on Saturday, and I'll make it quick, it was 29 degrees and snowing. And the tournament was starting. Okay, so I showed up Saturday and I started practicing Sunday. So, and the tournament started Wednesday. It was a Wednesday, Friday event. So, Saturday was 29 degrees and there was a foot of snow like at Lakeport. And, for people that don't know, Clear Lake, Lakeport is at the lake's edge. That the entire lake is at about 1,400 feet elevation. So, there is a little bit of elevation, but there was a foot of snow on Saturday when we showed up. And then the next day on Sunday, it was like 30, and we're talking the lows, and the highs only really got to like 46 on those 2 days. So and I just tried, and again, you've been an ace there for a long time. Normally you catch them on rigs or you catch them on jerk baits when it gets cold like that, and it's kind of that pre-spawn deal, and that's what I went looking for. And really I had one of the worst practices that maybe not the worst ever, but it was top 5 worst practices going into a major event like that I've had in my career.
Wow. Wow. So first day, I, those of you don't know Clear Lake, it's Bassmaster rated at the top bass fishing destination lake of the decade. Okay, from 2010 to 2020, I believe it was. So
Yeah.
this lake, man, if you've got 22 pounds, what place were you in the first day?
I wasn't too far off. I think I was in 13th. I think I was in 13th or 16th.
Yeah. So, but some of these tournaments, if you got 20 pounds, you're in 50th place. Clearly.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I think that that cold front really knocked them back.
Yes.
Leading into our event, or else, yeah. I mean, there's been times where I've weighed like 23 pounds, and I'm literally in 39th place.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that kind of lake. Yeah, the place has them for sure. There's just a
So
lot of fish.
going into day one, you had 22 pounds, but what was your primary bait that you said, hey, I'm going to hone this in? What was that first day?
So on day one, I was fishing a little bit open. I was throwing a swim bait, and I was flipping a little bit because in practice, that's really what I was getting bit on. And I had 4 rods out on day one, and I threw a swim bait about 60%, and then I flipped about 40% of the day.
Okay.
That's kind of my day one. And then and I just, after day one, I just said, dude, they're getting like that reaction bite for me was getting worse and worse as day one went on. But after day one, I ended up catching of the 5 fish that I weighed in, I ended up catching 1 on the swimmer, and then and then the other 4 I weighed in on a flipping stick.
And I think I had read that you were focusing on the middle of the lake, but I think you decided to go north.
Yeah, that's the last day of practice. I mean, I had been, in that mid lake, rattlesnake area during practice, and I really practiced smart, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, and I knew on Sunday that it was going to be 30, the low was going to be 30 and the high was going to be like 46 degrees. So it's going to be cold, and so I purposely spent my time on those deeper areas, and deeper on Clear Lake, that next stage of deeper is probably, 10 to 18-ish. That would be considered deeper, right? I mean, I know people do catch fish in that 15 to 25 also there.
Yeah.
But that's where I was spending my time, and that was by design. And I told the MLF rider, like, the first day of the practice, I went dark to dark, and I jerked like 13 different rip baits. I never ever had a bite on day one of practice.
Wow.
I never had a bite.
Wow.
And I fished dark to dark, like literally safe light was at 6:30, and I got off the water around 6:15.
Wow. That's got to be a long day. I've experienced
long and concerning.
Yes, absolutely. So day 2, you're going in. John's leading it, I believe. He had what, 29 pounds?
Yeah. John Pearl was leading it.
I had a chance to see him at the Bassmaster Classic last year. It was great to reconnect with a lot of people at the Classic. But
yeah, I'm a huge John Pearl fan. I mean, he's just great person, and one of the best anglers that we have out here for sure.
Absolutely. So day 2, you're going in. What are you thinking now? You're thinking.
So so on day 1, I didn't get my first bite until 10:28, and we launched at 7. So it took me 3.5 hours to get my first bite.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it was a grinder of an event. But day 2, so I ended up so I had 4 rods out on day 1, and I pulled out 3 rods on day 2. I pulled the swimmer out. I made maybe 10 or 15 casts with it. And then I pulled a big bite creature bait out, which is basically modeled after a brush hog.
Mm-hmm.
And I threw that around on a lighter weight just because I thought I was catching a lot of fish that were just off the structure,
Yes.
just in that, there's some grass and brush and the stuff you just can't see that's probably sitting in 6 to 8 feet.
Yeah.
In practice, they actually ate, when it was colder, they actually ate that swim bait a little bit better in practice, because I had shook off some what I felt were some nice feeling fish when they ate it. But then as the tournament wore on, I think it just got worse and worse for me. So I pulled out 3 rods. I pulled that big bite creature bait, which is like a brush hog. I threw that around, caught one that mattered. But then the other 4 that day, I caught on a black and blue jig with a 3-inch black and blue sapphire Yo Mama, on the back of it. It's just old school. I love flipping a jig, man. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
you lose less of them. It's less maintenance on your bait. You don't have to drive a big hook through the plastic. It's an exposed hook, and typically you land them. I told the MLF writer that 100%, if I was using a punch rig, like a 3/4 ounce punch rig or a 1 ounce punch rig, 100% I would not have won the event.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, one thing here when I moved to Florida, Ken, I got to tell you, I'm used to throwing jigs. It seemed like black and red and black and blue were always the colors to go to, on the West Coast, especially on the Delta, Clear Lake. You get back here, and I've never owned so many worms in my life. Matter of fact, here, this is a test. Do you know what a Florida swim bait is?
Yeah, it's a freaking gambler speed worm with the freaking weight in the front of it.
Exactly.
I know exactly what that is, because there used to be back when that was like really starting off.
Yes.
It was crazy because I tried to bring that to the Delta. So but the fish aren't the same.
No, and that's the oddest thing. I have jigs, and I do throw them from time to time, but Ken, you're right. It's different. So back here, it's all worms, but um, you know, I love black and blue jigs, and they're awesome. I should probably throw it here more, but everybody, you talk to people, and they're winning 10 people. They're going to be throwing a speed worm. I call them Florida swim baits. So
they throw them in it's like that BB cricket that everybody used to throw. I mean, they throw it like in black and blue and like what is that, like plum? That kind of plumish, that dark plum.
Red shad, plum.
Right. Right.
They throw it in. Yes.
Yeah, it's just crazy how, the regions are, so different, because like I said, I actually tried, I'm really good friends with Jared Lintner, and I asked him about that Florida deal, because a place like Okeechobee is very similar to Clear Lake and the Delta, and how the bass set up and things like that, so, and I asked him, I go, man, why can't I throw that, and this was, probably a decade and a half ago.
Yes.
Like, why can't I throw that around, So, but it never worked.
You're right. It's weird how that works. One other quick story I got to tell you, and then I ask you another question. But I was fishing the Bass Nation State Championship on the Harris chain last year, and I drew my first day. Co-angler was a high school kid, and great kid. He picked up a spinner bait, and his trailer was a Zoom speed worm, white. So literally, you got the spinner bait, and then he's hanging out here another 5-6 inches.
Yeah.
Going, I'm just saying to myself, he's not going to catch nothing. I had to get the net 3 times, and I'll tell you right now, I can go grab all my spinner baits right now, and that's what I put on for a trailer. It's the craziest thing.
Crazy, huh?
They just chew it. They just chew it. Go figure.
Yeah. So, going back to day 2, I weighed 2912, which was then at the time the heaviest bag of the entire tournament on day 2.
Yes.
And I actually had a better bag on day 2 because my big one was only a 7 1/4. So yeah, it was, I mean, it's pretty crazy, and I still didn't, yeah, I still didn't think that I was on the right stuff to
Too.
win.
Yes.
I didn't at no, not until day three when I caught that 11 that I feel that I could make a run at it.
Well, yeah, I mean, tell me about that 11. Let's just jump to day three here. Tell me about that morning because was it your second fish you caught? The 11?
Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
was my second fish. So, I started somewhere different. Basically I fished, between like Long Tule and, Lakeport.
Okay.
I basically was jumping around
The
fishing,
corner.
in that. I was in the corner, but I was in the corner, and then I was over there by catfish, and then I went up by the condo dock, and then
Yes.
I also fished over by Long Tule. So each day, each first 2 days, like I told you, I didn't get my first bite on day one till 10:28. Didn't get my first bite till on day two till 10:29. So it was about 10:30 when I was getting my first bite.
Yeah.
So on day three, I went and did something different, somewhere different, and then I ended up catching one. My first fish was like a 5.5 pounder on my handheld, and I caught that earlier than I had gotten any bite on the first 2 days. So, and I felt good about it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm ahead of where I was at, yesterday and the day before. I got a 5.5 already, so then I'm fishing, and it was funny because on day three, the fish actually bit earlier than 10:30.
Hmm.
So I'm just fishing. I was real methodical. Everybody asked, me if I was punching, and it really wasn't punching. I was just flipping, pitching, and again, a little bit of punching because there was some duckweed in the area,
Yes. Yes.
but it wasn't your traditional Delta punching,
Yes.
at all. It was just a little bit of that soft tules and a little bit of duckweed mixed in, and it was just pushed up against like tule points and around that brush. Yeah, you haven't seen it. I'm assuming you haven't seen it unless you've been back. So during the low water years in 19 or 20 and 21, the lake bed was exposed. For like you could literally walk from the Fifth Street ramp. You could walk out 150, 200 yards on land.
Wow.
That's
No,
how low the lake was.
wow.
You know, um, so when it exposed that lake bed, the willow brush grew, you would call it buckbush,
Yes. Yes.
and that grew. Well, then in 23, yeah, 23 and 24, it rained typical, California, and it flooded that entire lake again. And all that buckbrush is in the lake now.
That's awesome. So
It really is. It really is. That's going to help the spawn so much, because people aren't going to be able to, the fish are going to be able to spawn at the base of that buckbrush, and
yes.
no one, you can't sight fish them. You can't even get a boat in there.
Oh, that's
You know,
awesome. Oh my.
yeah,
Has the
yeah,
grass come back?
and it grew everywhere.
Yeah. Has
You know,
the grass?
yeah, there was a little tiny bit of grass starting, but it was a little bit too early for
Yeah,
that.
it's still too early on that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's too early.
You take that and you throw that, you're just pitching that jig, and you just hit the right spot, and she was there, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, basically, it was a fantastic bite. It was the only bite that I had. So I flip, pitch, and punch a lot. So, when the fish are biting your bait on the drop, that means they're aggressive, right? And then throughout the event, out of the 15 fish that I weighed in, like I said, I weighed one on a swim bait, one on a hog, and the other 13 fish, I probably only had two fish that ate me on the drop. All the rest of them were biting, there was so finesse.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, it was just, and it wasn't even like a pressure bite. A pressure bite's actually even better than how they were biting.
hmm.
So the focus was you had to be on your game, on your focus, every flip, but that fish, I flipped up next to there was a little bit of duckweed, really deep tule. Basically when my bait hit the bottom there, it was probably 6.5, 7 feet deep at the base of the tules.
Okay.
So I flipped the bait up in there a little bit shallower than I had been fishing, because I felt the fish were pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yes.
So they flipped a little bit shallower, and she moved the entire tule. I mean, she rocked the entire tule to come get my bait.
Whoa.
And I'm like, oh, I've seen this happen 100,000 times.
That's so exciting. Yes.
Oh, it really was. So she rocked the entire thing. I just waited. I just paused 1 second and I hit her, and then she flashed, and I told my co-angler, I go, oh, dude, I figured it was an 8er when I saw her.
Yes. Yeah.
She was big, made a big splash. She got out. She came right off the bank, got out into that little bit of deeper water, and I got her on a 7-Eleven Loomis flipping stick, with braid, and I got her. I got her on a single hook bait.
Yeah.
There's no reason to horse her. So she's down there, digging, and I'm trying to turn her. I can't turn her. I told him, I go, dude, it's a big one, and then I finally turn her, and she shows, and Blaine Christensen, my co-angler, he yells out, ain't gonna fit in the net. Right. And I look down, and I'm just like, oh, I don't know how big that is. And I just tell him, I go freaking net her. That's what I tell him. I go net her,
awesome.
And he nets her, and, he's like, it's a teener. It's a teener, and I looked at it, and I said, I don't know if it's a teener, Blaine. I go, but it's big, and, I put her on my handheld, and she weighed 11.12. That was my second fish of the day.
Oh.
Yeah. So I got, at that point, I got 16.5 pounds for 2.
Yeah.
So when that happened, that's equivalent of, catching 2 8ers, right?
Yep.
When that happened, I'm like, well, gosh, if I catch 3-4 pounders, right, I'm going to have 28 pounds.
That's it.
Right. And, I had well, actually, no, John Strelick was leading. He had a 9-ounce lead on me. Right. So I'm doing math. I'm like, okay, well, if I catch 3 more 4-pounders, I'm going to have 28 pounds. He's got to catch 27.5 to be even with me, So at that moment, it was that fish, that moment where I said, okay, if it's meant to be, then it's going to happen.
That's awesome. How many more did you catch today? I know you brought in 31 pounds, but did you cull a few times, or did you just?
No. So the first 5 fish I caught,
yes,
were the 5 fish I weighed. I ended up getting 2 more bites after I boxed my 5th fish. So my 3rd fish was like a 4-pounder.
Yes.
And then my 3rd fish was like a 4-pounder. My 4th fish was like a 540.
Okay.
And then my last fish I actually caught on camera was like a 580.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then I had 2 more bites. I caught 1 more fish that would not have cold.
Yes.
And I ended up weighing 31.12, and I ended up being 9 ounces back to winning by almost 6.5 pounds.
That's awesome. Congratulations again.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal story.
Crazy.
What is next? Because we got to wrap this up here. We got a few minutes left. And listen, I hear a lot of the West Coast pros have set up a GoFundMe for Ken Ma, trying to get you back east. What's the chance of that ever happening?
Slim to none. Slim to none. I don't have any desire.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I want to do. I'm fishing at the highest level that I can while still staying at home.
Yeah. No, you're enjoying it. I see your enjoyment. I've seen it the last 4 or 5 years, how much.
Yeah. I do. There really is nothing. I say, for me personally, there's nothing that drives me to want to go do that.
Yes.
I really have, I've been blessed. Like I said, I've won a lot of things that, not everything that you can win out here almost. I'd like to win the US Open
Yes.
out here. And, at that point, that I would say that there's not much to win out here after that.
Yeah, that
And
that's a big one to win that U.S. Open. I'm excited for you and look forward to seeing you do win it. Hey, Gary won it. No, Dobbins. He won it.
yeah, yeah. No, there's definitely some who's of who has won that event.
Bob
Uh,
Tosh, he's won it. Just to name a couple real fast,
yeah,
but
yeah, no, absolutely.
it's amazing.
Clifford Perch, he's won 3 times. Aaron Martin won it.
Yeah. How
You
many times
know,
has Clifford won it? 4 times or three?
at least 3. So
Yes.
I don't. Hopefully, I'm not shortchanging them, but I
Yes.
I think 3. You know, um,
It's interesting, and people that are watching this right now, Ken, I know you haven't been back east a lot, but I've been back here and I spoke to a lot of the West Coast guys, not going to mention any names here, but we all die for California fishing. I didn't realize how much the bass fishing is different until, and there's a lot of variables that go into that, Ken. But the West Coast, enjoy it. Stick them all you can. Okay.
yeah,
Um, it is absolutely awesome to see you doing this. Real quick here before we wrap this up, forward facing sonar has made a big, and you did put out some social media, which is like, hey, listen, you got to adapt. If you don't, you're going to become a dinosaur. And this technology, it's getting cleaner and cleaner all the time. But give me your thoughts real quick on that. I think it's something that's here to stay. Nothing you can do about it.
yeah, yeah. I think this is what I say privately. I don't get on social media and fault anybody or take
No.
one side or the other because my opinion's mine only.
Yes.
And then also it's everybody's opinions. Everybody has one. So real quick, the way I look at it is it's like anything else. Uh, it's like mapping, side scanning. You're not complaining about 4 strokes. You're not complaining about power poles. You're not complaining about spot lock or anchor mode on your trolling motors. You're not complaining about lithiums. But everybody's using all those things,
Yes.
right? So, I think this is a big thing that people are talking about. It is changing the way people are fishing.
Yes.
So I'm in that mindset of, I always say this: if you don't change and adapt, that's what happened to dinosaurs. Okay, so
Absolutely.
if you want to be a dinosaur and be extinct, then complain, right? Which a lot of people do. Then complain about what's available to you and become extinct. And for me, I don't want to become extinct. I got events I still want to win. I got things that I still want to accomplish,
Absolutely.
and I'm going to take advantage of every advantage, within the rules that I can. So, I'm by nature, as you know, not a forward-facing sonar fisherman. I grew up on, like you said, I grew up on the Cal Delta. I typically fish in 8 feet of water and dark water or less.
Yes.
And I've been blessed. Like I said, I've won 11 major events out here. And, none of them have been attributed to forward facing sonar.
Exactly.
So I think people have to realize who they are. But you also have to be opportunistic, like if I took your mapping away from you on a foreign body of water, you would be more lost than if I gave you forward facing sonar.
Absolutely. And I could tell you, living where I live here, because everything's lumps, bumps, humps, stumps, and you're absolutely right. Kent, I'm so excited for you. I'm glad. And I continue to watch you. You're an inspiration, especially to a lot of these young kids, okay, that look up to you. And, guys, when you're out there, be like a Ken. Be yourself. Do the best you can. Don't focus on things that you can't control, right? Right?
Yeah.
And just go fishing. You're one flip away, right, Ken?
Yeah. Yeah. The very next cast. You got to stay positive all the time and you got to stay ready.
All right. Thank you. I want to wrap this up right now and to say it's been an honor having known you all these years and being a friend of yours. Thank you so much.